Welcome back to another episode of Tablesetters covering all things baseball. As always, I'm Steve, joined my tag team partner, Devin. What's going on, man?
What's going on, dude? It's a beautiful night, as always, to talk some baseball. March just about here. It feels like one long Christmas Eve for baseball fans, but the good news is college baseball is in full swing. So we already have some baseball on TV and some stuff to watch and talk about.
So no warm-up with the bullpen. Today we open the show with our guest, head baseball coach at Campbell University, Chris Marx. Coach Marx is in his first season as head coach for the Fightin Camels, and we're honored that he's taken some time out of his busy schedule to join us tonight. A really big week thus far. Welcome, Coach. How you doing tonight?
Doing great. Doing great. Excited to be on here and talk about Campbell baseball with you guys. Appreciate you guys taking the time.
So, Coach, it's early, obviously, in the 2025 season here, but we're about 8 games for you guys you've played so far. I want to talk about those a little bit here. You started out playing UC Santa Barbara, a top 25 team. You've been home since then. A couple big wins, or a few big wins this week, namely the one against Duke. I think that stood out to people, a top 25 team as well. So I just want to know, from your point of view, early, obviously, but what have you seen from your squad so far?
Yeah, well, I think, we ran into a really good UCSB team early, right? Traveling across the country to the West Coast. This is the first time I'd ever done that. First time a lot of our guys have been out there, but, they got a projected top 10 pick on Friday night, and they got a projected probably top 10 pick next year on Saturday. So we ran into a couple really good arms. We knew that was going to be a tough task. We are young offensively. We knew we were going to have our hands full with that. And, and then, moving on from that, had a good win in the middle of the week versus East Carolina. One of our rivals. Actually ended my time as an assistant coach with Campbell was ended by East Carolina. They beat us twice in the regional championship my last year as an assistant coach here before I moved on to Purdue and then now back as the head coach. But, a good win, getting our first win there at home at Jim Perry Stadium. And then, still couldn't get the bats quite rolling that weekend against Ryder. We just didn't have a very, very good first 6 games offensively. I think once again, we're young, but we're better than what we showed early, and then put up 13 in the last game against Ryder and then 9 against Duke. And, hopefully we can build some momentum and get the bats going a little bit from there.
So you gave a little hint to possibly the answer to this next question, but I'll ask it anyway here. Again, 8 games into the season, obviously as head coach, you want your guys to be improving on everything at least a little bit every day, every week. But if you had to pick one aspect of the game, one facet of the game, what to you needs to improve the most or the quickest, I guess I could say?
Yeah, the offense is the one that is underachieved a little bit thus far. I think our pitching has been really good. We actually are without probably, what would have been 2 of our weekend starters, right? Opening weekend, probably the 2 most proven guys on our staff, Zach Sabers and Cooper Clark. Cooper Clark has had a couple appearances, but hasn't quite felt himself. A little bit of forearm tightness, possible tendonitis in there. So Zach Sabers is back throwing today, actually, and then Cooper Clark is going to take a week and get back right. And so, it's fallen on the shoulders of a bunch of guys that have not done it at this level, and they've been tremendous, right? Mason Smith is the guy that started for us against East Carolina and Duke and was outstanding in both of those. Jacob Murray, who we're starting on Friday night, is a guy that missed last year due to Tommy John, had a few good starts before tearing his UCL the season before, and he has been good. And those guys have given us a chance to win games. Unfortunately, we just have not been very good with the bats so far. Early in the season. So defensively, we've been okay. On the mound, we've been good, and where we've underachieved has been offensively so far.
So you mentioned your coaching career being bookmarked here as far as being at Campbell a little bit here, starting back in 2007. This is your second stint at Campbell. Talk to us about the road where you were. You mentioned your stop at Purdue, and all roads seem to lead back to the Fightin Camels.
Yeah, so kind of a unique story. So I started my career at the University of Southern Indiana, which was actually in my hometown. And the head coach there, Tracy Archuleta, who is now the head coach at Indiana State, to hire me, he actually switched over to being the pitching coach so he could hire me to do the hitting there. And then, and that was something that I'd never seen before. A guy that could switch over and kind of coach both sides of the ball is unique and different. And I always thought if I had an opportunity to do that, I would take that opportunity because I knew it would prepare me for, this time in my career, right? A chance to be a head coach. And so from there, I went on to the University of Arkansas Little Rock as the hitting coach. I actually coached for the guy that I played for in college. Went there as the hitting guy and recruiting guy. My first year there, we led the country in home runs per game. We were sixth in the country in runs scored, and I think we were 27 and 28. So learned real quick that if we couldn't pitch, we were not going to win. And when our pitching coach took another job, our head coach did not have a bunch of names of guys to hire as the pitching coach. And so I basically told him, hire the best guy and I'll do whatever's left, and ended up switching over to pitching and had success on that side of the ball. But actually was brought to Campbell by Justin Haire, who was the assistant coach that I played for. And he knew me as a hitting and recruiting guy. And so kind of had the same story there. I started as the hitting guy and based out of necessity, switched over to pitching and spent the last 2.5 years at Campbell doing the pitching, and went to regionals our last 2 years, lost in the regional final our last year. And then did the same thing again at Purdue. I went to Purdue as the pitching coach, and then Coach Goff had the opportunity to hire Terry Rooney, who was his pitching coach at Alabama, and I switched back over to the hitting for my last year there. And Coach Haire left and went to Ohio State, and had a chance to come back to a place that I'm familiar with, a place that I love, and chance to lead a program that has been to 5 of the last 6 regionals, and just recently kind of put themselves on the map, right? And excited to be back and trying to hold the line for what's been done here.
It's hard to have a crystal ball and predict that you'd be back because your journey, as you mentioned, has been, all these different spots gaining experience. But in just even watching the time here that we're seeing with the Fightin Camels, there's a chemistry being built. Has that always been the case with your relationship with Campbell? Because it really feels like there's, to use the word, there is a love affair. It feels like there is something that you love about being there.
Yeah, I think, Campbell's just such a unique place, right? It's a small town, right? It's a small private school, right? It's about 4,000 students, where everybody knows everybody. The guys that come to our program, right, don't come because college game day is coming on a football Saturday, right? They come to see how good of people and how good of players that they can become. And, everybody is there pulling on the same rope together within the entire athletic department, within the community, right? Our donors, our supporters, our players, right? Everybody's just pulling on. It is a family, right? You hear Campbell baseball, you hear the term brotherhood a lot, and that's a real thing, right? Like everybody is after a win on Sunday, everybody is hanging out at the same place. All our guys are together at the field. When I got the job in July, guys were turning out the lights and putting the hack attacks away, at 10 o'clock at night in July, right? Because that's what there is to do in Buies Creek, right? You come there to develop and win at a high level. And, I think it's, you lean on each other because that's who you have here in Buies Creek, right? And so it is a family atmosphere and, something that, my 2 oldest kids grew up in, and we love it here and just excited to be back.
So you went through some of the stops you've been at. Your resume is impressive. I was looking at it earlier, and not just the stops and what you've done, but the numbers. If you dig into the numbers, a lot of things show that you're successful in a lot of different places. So you've worn many different hats as far as, like you mentioned, pitching coach, hitting coach, lead assistant, leading recruiting efforts. Great results in each position. What's the biggest difference for you, if any, as the head coach in that seat compared to those other positions you've been in?
Yeah, it was really different, honestly. Starting this fall, right? I'm used to being the guy in the trenches, with 4 hitters at a time for 5 hours a day, or or 2 to 4 pitchers at a time for 5 hours a day, right? And so I think we had 23 new players and 6 new coaches, right? When we started, and so just trying to find out what the processes were going to look like, right, to make us successful in the long run. And so the 2 guys that I hired on the pitching side of the ball, Travis Stone from Dallas Baptist, and then Ryan Kramer from Millersville, Division II up in the Northeast. Neither of those guys had actually ran a Division I pitching staff. So I spent a lot of my time in the fall kind of with those guys and just making sure that the processes were, what I've been accustomed to. And obviously, that was a big part in why those guys were hired to take over that job. But, the other 2 guys on the offensive side of the ball is a little bit more familiar with, right? Adam Wise, our recruiting guy, and lead hitting guy is a guy that I recruited here to Campbell, a guy that played for me here at Campbell. And then Seth LaRue is a guy that I brought with me from Purdue, who spent last year with me at Purdue when we broke several of the offensive records, in the history of Purdue there last year. So he had some familiarity of working with me, and then and then Coach Wise obviously had familiar of playing with me and stuff like that. So I spent most of my time with the pitching coaches, and it was different, right? Trying to figure out kind of where I fit in and where the best use of my time was, just to try to help those coaches grow and help our players grow. And I think it's just important for me, that all of our guys feel like that I have a hand in their development. And so I try to be around all of them, and so, like I said, I spent a little bit more time with the pitching early, and recently I've spent more time with the offense. And, obviously, when team practice comes around, right, it's been great leading the charge and gathering the guys and everything like that, as far as coaching the defense and what it takes to be successful. And ultimately that's all we try to get across to our guys, is what it takes, on a day-to-day basis to be successful and win at the level that we're trying to win at here at Campbell.
So your predecessor at Campbell was Justin Haire, who now coaches at Ohio State, and you were his lead assistant at Campbell back from 2014 to 2019. You also played for him when you were playing at D2 baseball back in 2006, 2007, and he was the coach. So it seems like you guys have been intertwined, and that relationship has to be so strong that you've built upon in baseball, being in the trenches. Tell us about the relationship over the years with Coach Haire and what you've learned from him.
Yeah, so it does, right? He recruited me, out of Olney Central Community College in Illinois, and we grew close, when I was a player. We actually, we shared a rack on in the weight room a lot of days when the team would lift, and so it was something that we had talked about, as I got into coaching and and had some success, that when he was able to take over as a head coach, if I would join him. I got fortunate that it was at Campbell, a place that they had success, and Coach Goff and him had kind of built up and been to a regional. And, I was fortunate that it was there. And then obviously spent 5 years as his assistant, and, kind of learning, he was a first year head coach, and, he was trying to carve his own path, right, after what Coach Goff had done there. And we learned together, and with the help of other really good assistants, right? Jake Wells, who's now an assistant coach at Louisiana Tech, and Tyler Shoemaker, who was at Vanderbilt, and now Coastal Carolina, and Tyler Robinson, who's with Justin at Ohio State, right? It was all of us, right? Like, once again, it's a family atmosphere, and everybody pulling on the same rope to just try to do what's right for our players, and try to be the best developers of men and people and character and players that we could possibly be. And, we felt like, throughout the years, we got to what was a pretty good system. And, and there's a lot of those, things that still remain at Campbell, and excited to, kind of get back to the basics and improve upon kind of with what I've learned going to the Big Ten and coming back, and, just trying to make little tweaks, and ultimately it just comes down to the same thing, just trying to do right by our guys and help them develop as people and players.
As far as recruiting goes, when you're meeting these kids and meeting their families, what would the number one selling point for your program be?
Well, there's a really good track record of development, right, guys? I'm sure you've seen, right? We've kind of garnered the term "Nobodies from nowhere," right? Like, the guys that come to Campbell were passed over by a lot of places, right? Like, nobody's famous here, right? Including myself, and so I think the biggest selling point is, there's a track record of winning and a track record of producing guys that are ready to go out and attack the world. A lot of them in professional baseball, right? We had 5 big leaguers this past year. Tommy Harrington is knocking on the door with the Pirates. Cade Keeler, right? There's, Spencer Packard. There's several that are knocking on the door that we're hoping, will break through and make it to the big leagues as well. And we feel like, we have always, felt like we were on the cutting edge of development, right? And we wanted to push the limits, and we never wanted to be the status quo and, take BP how everybody else took BP, and practice how everybody else practiced, and trained like everybody else. Like, we wanted to figure out what was right? And there were some bumps and bruises along the road, and trying to figure out what those processes were. But we feel like we train in really challenging environments. And I think that's where a lot of the offensive numbers have come from, is, our guys, our guys were not overmatched that first weekend, right? Seeing 96 to 98 and 97 to 100 on Friday and Saturday night. We just didn't perform and get the hits when we needed to. And I think that's because they see those types of shapes and they see that type of velo every single day, right? And so, we train hard, and we're there in the trenches with them every single day. We're not rolling the balls out there and, just telling them to throw strikes or get hits. And if not, we'll go find the other people. Like, we recruit guys with high ceilings that love to work. They're baseball rats, if you will, and we're in the trenches with them, and we just want to develop them as players and as people, right? And I think that's gone a long way. And so, we figured out pretty quick that we want guys that can be great teammates, and like I said, everybody is together at Campbell all the time, right? Whether it's just in the community in Bowie's Creek or whether it's at practice, and we want guys that can be great teammates and that are pushing the other guys to work. And eventually, right, if you just keep competing, right, you will figure it out.
So you mentioned the rallying cry before. You guys wore those special jerseys the other night that say Nobodies, and you said Nobodies from nowhere. Explain to the listeners out there what the significance is that for you guys, because it feels like, again, a rallying cry, something for a belief that this team has in themselves.
Yeah, so that was something that was started by Justin Haire and carried on by Zach Neto, who's the shortstop for the Los Angeles Angels, right? He had that on his cleats during Players Weekend last year, and he's a huge supporter of us and still involved with our program and helping us out. And Nobodies from nowhere is it's a couple things, right? Number one, it's about having a chip on your shoulder, right? It's about playing with some edge because you were passed up by other places, right? Or kicked away from the bigger schools, right? If you look on a roster, there's guys that were turned away from SEC schools or guys that weren't recruited by the bigger places, right? And they're coming here to prove themselves, right? And so we asked those guys, coaches included, myself included, right, to show up every day with a chip on your shoulder, like you got something to prove, whether we're 3-5 or 8-0, right? That mentality has to stay. And number two, it's just about a sense of humility, right? Nobody's above anything, right? If you're walking, you're walking the field and there's a piece of trash, right? Pick it up, right? Be a good teammate, find ways to help each other all the time, right? Put others before yourself. And I think if we show up and do those things on a day-to-day basis and continue to pour in the work, good things will happen.
So you guys are auctioning those jerseys off right now. If you guys have seen, you can check it out on social media, and you also can follow Chris at CMarks21 on the X Machine. What are these jerseys? Obviously, very highly touted, something that people want in their hands. Where do the proceeds go for this?
Players. It goes to player. It goes to recruiting. It goes to our players. It goes to making sure that they have food in the fuel zone. It making sure that they can eat like they need to eat to maintain their weight. Right. Everything is it goes back to them. We'll do some other stuff later in the spring with military appreciation, where more of that money goes to charity and stuff like that. But this goes to helping us fund our program. Right. And we're fortunate to be the flagship program at the university. They want us to succeed at a high level, and they fund us well. But we want to make sure that there's no resource that other teams are using that we don't have. Right. We want to make sure that Wake Forest or Vanderbilt is not giving their guys tools that our guys don't have access to, right? And so, at a school with only 4,000 students, right, that's a little bit tougher. So you have to be a little bit creative in ways that you fundraise and do those things, right? And so, it was a cool idea, and we're going to raise some money out of it, and ultimately it's going to go back to trying to help our players, be the best versions of themselves, and help those guys achieve their dreams, and hopefully we can hang another banner at some point here in the near future.
I will say, I don't know if they're doing more than just the auctioning off the game worn ones. If there were other ones to buy, I know I would be purchasing those. I know Steve would as well. So just a little feedback there. Those are awesome and something that I think a lot of people would want. Just to go back to recruiting for a minute, there's so many baseball or college baseball powerhouses. You even just talked about a few in the Carolina area. It's got to be incredibly competitive recruiting in that area. But one thing I noticed about the roster, which I thought was pretty cool, is obviously there's plenty of North Carolina representation, but there's guys from all over the place. Like I'm seeing guys from Hawaii, Iowa, Illinois, Pennsylvania, Jersey, Texas, Tennessee, Mississippi, Virginia, and more. How does Campbell, a smaller school, go about expanding their reach like that?
Yeah, that's kind of always been the case, for myself, everywhere that I've been and definitely here, we're going to find the players that are the right fits for our program, and whether that's an hour down the road or right in our backyard or whether it's, Oahu, Hawaii or, California, we have typically done a lot of transfer recruiting in the past and we'll continue to do so. And, there is good junior college baseball all over the country. Maybe more now than ever, right? With the roster limitations that are coming forward next year, right? With, teams being limited to 38 and then 34 players as opposed to unlimited to 40 players. There's going to be more good players out there. And so, we want to make sure that we're finding the players that are the right fit for us and the guys that really want to be, in our culture and in our environments. And so, we will, we love North Carolina kids, right? We recruit the North Carolina kids hard, but, if there's, somebody that's the right fit from farther away, then we'll go wherever it takes, right, to find those guys. And we just want to put our guys with good people and guys with high ceilings that have a chance to make it to the big leagues and, that maybe needed a little bit different type of coaching or a little bit more love or whatever it is. And we're going to find those guys. And like I said, we're going to be right there in the trenches with them. And it doesn't matter where they're from. We just want guys that want to work and have a chance to be great.
So what are the biggest differences between this go around with Campbell and your first tenure there is the conference you now play in? And Campbell made 5 straight appearances in the NCAA tournament from 2018 to 2023, playing in the Big South Conference. Last year was the first year in the CAA. Went through some ups and downs, going 31-22, but only 12-15 in conference play. What are the biggest changes in playing in a different conference? And give us your thoughts on the CAA as a whole as you kind of approach that as your first year as a head coach.
Yeah, well, the CAA is a really good baseball conference, right? With ourselves included, there was 4 teams that were ranked in the top 100 programs in the country. I won't mention any of the other ones' names, but there's 4 teams that are in the top 100, right? And so it is, it's a battle right there at the top, right? It was a 1-bid league last year, and the teams that were second and third were basically 1 spot out of being at large bids in the regional. So it was very close to a 3-bid league. It was the 7th best league in the country last year. It was the 10th best league in the country the year before that. So it's a really good baseball conference, right? And our non-conference schedule is, one of the best in the country as well, right? Obviously, East Carolina, Duke, North Carolina State. We play all the big, the Power 4 schools, right, in the middle of the week. So, there are no breaks in our schedule, right? So, same thing. We got UConn and Texas State and Georgia Southern coming up. So, we're going to go play the best of the best, right? I think that's something that we've always said, like, we're not going to be afraid to play anybody, anywhere, anytime, right? We want our guys to carry themselves like that. We want them to have big body language and walk into their, like they own the place, right? Not like they're looking to buy it, like they own the place, right? Because they deserve that because they put in the work, right? Our group puts in the hours, puts in the time. They challenge themselves with really difficult training environments all the time. And I believe there's a sense of preparedness that goes along with that, and they've earned the right to do that. And so, ultimately we got to get more hits with runners in scoring position, and the wins and losses will take care of themselves. But it is a really good baseball league, and so, I've not seen, we played UNC Wilmington and College of Charleston when I was here as an assistant coach, but, we have not got to conference play here yet in my first season, but I've already started watching those guys a little bit as they play some of the same opponents that we play. And, I know it's going to be a challenge, right? Which is what you want, right? You want to go play the best and figure out, what you have to work on, right? We went to UCSB and faced 2 of the best arms in America right out of the chute, the first 2 games with, probably 6 underclassmen in the starting lineup, right? And so you figure out real fast that a bunch of front toss and attaboys probably aren't going to get it done, right? You got to go see those shapes and figure out how to hit those shapes and figure out movement solutions to get the ball off the barrel, however it is, right? And so I think it was a good wake up call, but I think moving forward, that'll help us make adjustments when we see some of the best arms in the league on Friday night. Right Elon's Friday guy is one of the top prospects in the country, and College of Charleston always pitches. I mean, we're going to have challenges ahead of us, but I think we'll be more prepared because of the non-conference schedule that we play day in and day out.
So you mentioned being aggressive with transfer students or athletes, and two things that have really just changed or impacted the college game, and not just baseball, but all over the place, is the transfer portal and NIL as well, which kind of depends on the school. But talk to us a little bit about both of those things, how they've affected your program, and just what you've seen overall from those two aspects of the game.
Sure. Well, this summer was a perfect example. There was actually a rule at Campbell within the university that they couldn't make a hire, under a week after somebody left, right? So Coach Haire leaves to Ohio State, and a week goes by before I was named as the head coach. And so, players, 18 to 22-year-olds get nervous and get uneasy. And so almost the entire team was in the transfer portal at the time when I took over the job. So July was hectic, right? It was a lot of phone calls, with guys that were still in the transfer portal, that had gotten in there from our program. There was a lot of calls from to guys, that we needed to replace guys that ended up leaving, right? By the time I got the job, there was a bunch of guys that already had offers from other places that, because of NIL, we couldn't match, right? There was guys that, were paying good money to come to Campbell that were now getting paid by other places, right? And so it was, hey, best of luck, I wish you the best, and on to the next one, right? So ultimately, what I told our guys at the beginning is we just wanted 40 guys that wanted to bleed it out for the black and orange, right? Guys that wanted to be here and put in the work with this group of men every single day. And, we've always bet on our development, and our ability to have a great culture and a great brotherhood here at Campbell. And, and that's what we did, right? And I feel really good, even though it's, lacks some of the experience, right? Because you get some guys that maybe have not done it at this level. I feel really good about our roster and the guys that we brought in and the type of people that they are and the fact that they're going to continue to get better. But, the portal has changed a lot, right? Because, once again, I had to come in and recruit the guys that were here, even a lot of the guys that are back on the roster, right? Having conversations with them and having conversations with their parents, about why Campbell was still the best place for them. Guys, you see it all the time from your quote unquote mid-major schools, right? Guys have good years at mid-majors and they get paid NIL money from the Power Four conferences, right? Especially the SEC, to come in there and, maybe be an everyday guy there, or maybe not, right? Some guys, everybody's different on how it works out for them. So, ultimately, right, if they don't want to be, with us anymore, then best of luck to them, right? We're going to end up with the 40 guys, or now the 38 to 34 guys, that want to bleed it out for the black and orange, and we'll be in the trenches with them and just focus on getting 1% better every single day. And, it's worked out for us in the past, and we'll just bet on us and the people, that we have around this program.
So we watched the game of college baseball grow exponentially in the past few years. And I mean, with baseball too, for major league level, we're watching a lot of changes go down as far as on the field. But this is kind of a general open question about, because Devin and I had a conversation in depth about the presentation of the game, the exposure, the lack of coverage on some of the major apps. Are there any changes on your end that you'd like to see in the game? It could be on field, any facet, rules, scheduling, presentation, recruiting, et cetera. Does any of that pop out to you as something that needs to change?
I like a lot of the rules that they've put in. I think the pitch clock has been tremendous, right? Pace of play and speeding up the game, for a fan experience, I think it's awesome, right? I think that has benefited the game and, drawn in people, to baseball that thought it was, a little bit too lengthy, previously. So I think that has been a tremendous rule. I think they've done a pretty good job with replay, right? And with 4 camera angles at minimum, helping those guys, making sure that they get the right calls, right? Guys work too hard to have stuff taken away from them by human error, in my opinion. So I think the replay has been a great change as well. And so I don't think, off the top of my head, as far as stuff that I would like to see right away, I think they've done a good job with, kind of making the game, better for fan experience and, better to get the calls right that need to get made right. So, I know there's been a lot of changes over the last few years, and they're continuing to tweak things, right? Like the hit by pitch rule and things like that. But, ultimately, I think they're on the right track and doing a good job for the game of baseball and for the college baseball experience for the fans and the players.
So we've seen some follow-up on the controversy in the Stetson versus Florida game where a run was taken off the board after a video review showed the Stetson player running to first base, stepped on the main first base bag instead of the new orange safety bag, obviously with safety in mind. And I do dig the orange safety bag. I think it is saving a lot of injury. We saw, even the major league level, Anthony Rizzo got hurt, et cetera, et cetera. We've seen a lot of collisions at first base, but this is going to happen when you make a rule. And I think a lot of people are looking at this to see it doesn't work. What are your thoughts on that?
Same thing, right? I think it's the best thing for the players, right? If you can avoid injuries that don't need to happen, I think it's great, right? Like we don't have a second base at our field. We don't have two bases at first base, I should say, because just with our turf and being able to get that done in the time when people started voting on it, it was a challenge, right? So really UCSB is the only game we have played where we've had two bases. So and it was almost like reminding the guys every inning, hey, you have to touch the green base, you have to touch the green base, right? It's going to happen, right? Where we'll at some point on the road, because we have not practiced with it, we've only played 3 games with it. We struck out too much the game we had it, so we didn't get a run down there and touch it anyway. But it's going to happen, right? But ultimately, if it's the best thing for the players and for their safety and keeping guys in the game that deserve to be in the game because they poured in the hours and the time to be in that game, then I'm for it, right? If it goes against us in a game, then so be it, right? We can't control those things, right? All we can do is remind our guys and keep pouring in the work and hoping that good things happen.
That's got to be tough though, with where it's not uniform yet, where like some places have it and some places don't. It almost reminds me a little bit of, I wonder how this spring trainings thing with the automatic ball strike review system, they're doing it in spring training, but not during the regular season. I know Terry Francona came out and said we are not doing it at all in spring because if we're not going to do it during the regular season, why do it now? It's going to mess people up. And I think he makes a good point. And that kind of reminds me of the base thing. If that is not uniform around the country, as a coach, I got to think, like you said, you're going to be kind of anxious about reminding your players constantly, like you got to touch that new base.
There's no doubt, but you mentioned the strike zone stuff too, and I'm not so sure that the strike zones are uniform across the country either, right? You go to some of those schools in the South and some of those bigger schools. I won't mention any names once again, right? But I've been to some places where the strike zone happens to change a little bit too. So it is what it is, right? And so ultimately we're just going to control the things that we can control, right? If they tell us we have to hit an orange base instead of a white base, then we're going to hope that we've disciplined our players well enough to touch the orange base when they're supposed to. I'm all in for the TrackMan strike zone at every place in the country. I hope that goes into effect. Once again, like that, the arguing with the umpires has been cut out tremendously, right? Because of video review, right? And so ultimately, I hope the cameras get better, right? There's too many calls that are called inconclusive because a 21-year-old communication student is running the camera down the third base line for whatever, streaming service it is, right? And so they don't get the right shot, but ultimately, what's best for the game, I'm all for, and whether we've had the chance to practice it or not, right? We're not going to make any excuses, right? We just try to teach our kids discipline and focus and hope they can touch the base they're supposed to touch.
As far as we're here to put the shine on Campbell tonight, but I do have to ask you one question about other people around the country here. So taking yourself out of Campbell, other players around the country, if you had to pick one or two guys, whether it's someone you've seen in person or someone you've seen on TV, who impresses you most in the college game right now?
Man, it would be hard for me to not pick the two guys that we saw on opening weekend, to be honest with you. Tyler Bremner, was 96, 98 and 3 pitches for strikes. And then Flora, the guy on Saturday that should be a top 10 pick, in my opinion, in next year's draft. That's once again, 97 to 100 and throwing off speed for strikes. I mean, it was impressive to watch, right? And, I've seen them firsthand, so it's easy to say that, but That's the best pitching staff I've seen in 15, 17, whatever years it's been in college baseball. And it wasn't really that close. Right. And so, I have to choose them because that's, because I've seen them firsthand and watched it, over a 3-game set.
And then to follow up that question, as far as the major league level, if you had to choose one current player from the majors to have your guys at Campbell model themselves after, whether it be their skill set or just their attitude and the way they play the game as a person, who would that guy be?
Man, I would have to say Zach Neto, to be honest with you. I mean, that guy is unbelievable, right? And it's easy to say that because he's a Campbell guy and, a guy that played here and been in this system. But, that guy gives back, right? Like it is, not just to us and Campbell baseball, but he is the most humble guy and he is a true nobody from nowhere, right? He plays with a chip on his shoulder, but he is humble enough to know that he is fortunate for every day that he gets, and he continues to glorify us. And he has bowling tournaments for charity, right, in his off time, right after having labrum surgery, right? I mean, once again, I've seen it firsthand, right? I know how much that guy does for the community and how involved he is and how much he wants to help other people. And just because I'm so familiar with who he is as a person and what he does off the field, and I don't get a chance to watch Major League Baseball that much, to be honest with you. There's so much involved with from a recruiting standpoint and trying to develop our own players and finding a way for our guys to win, that I only get to watch, the guys that I know, right? The guys like Cedric Mullins and the guys like, Zach Neto, but, just because I see it every day and I know, he has a big fan base now, but, I just watch it firsthand what that guy does for the people around him in his community and for Campbell University, not just the baseball team, but that guy's here and he's going and talking to the football team and going on podcasts for the athletic department and just wanting to help out however he can, right? And so I think I would have to say Zach Neto, and I'm proud he's a Camel.
Well, Zach, if you're listening and you ever want to come on here on Tablesetters and give Campbell some more shine, we'd be happy to have you. I want to say, so in addition to what you just said about Zach Neto, you named Cedric Mullins as well. 2024 was the first season ever in which 5 former Campbell players appeared in an MLB game. Cedric Mullins, Zach Neto, Ryan Thompson, Alan Winans, and Seth Johnson. You named a couple guys earlier that are probably knocking on the door. Tell us, what is it important to have that MLB representation as far as recruiting goes, so guys know that there is a road to the majors through Campbell University?
100%, right? You asked what's different, earlier, right? You asked what's different here now than when I was here, 10 to 5 years ago, right? And that's who people know who we are now, right? We've, Justin Haire did a great job, Coach Goff before him, putting this place on the map, right? And so, that is absolutely a big deal, right? Everybody knows who Zach Neto is now and who Cedric Mullins is now. And so, once again, those were guys, without a ton of scholarship offers and big time opportunities and stuff like that came to Campbell and developed, and then had an opportunity to continue on. Seth Johnson was a junior college shortstop, right? That pitched 3 innings, in junior college and came and developed and went from, 89 to 92 to 97 to 99 and had a chance to sign in the first round. And so, Alan Winans was the guy from Bakersfield, California that looks almost identical to what he was when he won a championship, hung a banner at Campbell, right? I went and saw him this summer and he was 89 to 91 still with the plus changeup. And now he's throwing his breaking ball a little bit harder. But, I think that, I think it speaks volumes, right? Because when I would call recruits, 8 years ago, there would be people that walked on our field 8 years ago, even after the renovations and the turf and the video board and the grandstands. And it is a beautiful place. And they would ask us if we were a Division I school, right? And that doesn't happen anymore, and so, that is a tribute a lot to, obviously going to 5 of the last 6 regionals, but also those guys that have carried on and done well for themselves. And, and guys like Zach that have continued to support this program and glorify this program. And, we're fortunate to have had those guys come through there. And we still have, we had all winter, we had 3 more guys that are knocking on the door to the big leagues that are training on our field all day. So, our guys get a chance to see how those guys carry themselves. And, they're in the position that they want to be in, and they see what it takes, right? From a professional standpoint, right? What it takes to be at that level. So it helps us in all aspects.
So as far as future major leaguers go, I'm sure there are a few possibilities on that roster as you sit here on just about the end of February 2025. But one that stood out to us was Dalen Thompson. He looks the part, plenty of power, speed potential. He had 313 with 10 homers, 47 RBIs, and led the team with 20 stolen bases last season. He has at least 1 hit in 6 of the first 8 games this season. 3 stolen bases so far. Give us your thoughts on his talent, potential, and gush about the dude, because I feel like you're very proud of what he's done so far.
Yes, yeah. So he is, from a hit standpoint, right? It's once again, it's early. It's 8 games in. So his average doesn't reflect, what he's capable of. But he has the tools to be an everyday guy in the big leagues. And so if he can iron out some of the consistency stuff, he should get a chance at the next level, and we'll have a chance to make it, to the major leagues. And so. He's a guy that is full of energy, right, and full of life, and the players absolutely love him, and he is a joy to be around. And once again, it is fun to have those guys that can, hit the ball over the pool and behind the left center field fence, right? And you put him in the cages with Cedric Mullins at the same age, and Dalen's tools are far better. Far better, right? And Cedric was an unbelievable center fielder. His instincts were nothing like I will never see that again. The fact that, he can, know exactly where a ball is going to fall and run straight to it, and get the best jumps and everything like that. But straight line speed and everything else, like Dalen is a special player. And so I'm excited to see what he does, after his time at Campbell is done.
That speed tool is so important now with the changes at the major league level. It's just with the bigger bases and without being able to throw over to first a million times, I feel like the guys that have that speed, their value has just gone through the roof. So we'll be watching a guy like Dalen Thompson closely over the next couple of years here. I want to ask you, we talked earlier about how you've done a bunch of different things in the coaching world. One of them was pitching coach. As someone who has done that and is now head coach, what are your thoughts on we call it the elbow epidemic, as far as all the injuries to pitchers' elbows? And how do you balance helping these kids get the most out of themselves while also trying to protect them as much as you can from certain devastating injuries?
Yeah, I think, ultimately, most of the guys that you see have had previous injuries. I think a lot of it is, the travel baseball boom, right? When I played, there was one team in the area, right? And if you weren't good enough to make it, then you didn't play travel baseball, right? And so now, my oldest is 10 years old, and there's, 7 teams that he could play for, right? The problem is there's not enough pitching, for those 7 teams. And so, the travel baseball world and the tournaments have figured out that the more games you play, the more money you make, right? And so these teams are playing, 5, 6, 7 games in a weekend, and they don't have enough pitching, to play in those tournaments. And so what happens, I remember, my first year, at Purdue, I saw a kid start 3 times in one day, start 3 games in one day. Right. And they used him as an opener, and it was only 1 or 2 innings, but you get to championship Sunday and you've already played 5 games and you don't have any other pitchers. If you throw strikes, like, you're going into the game it's a travel baseball problem, in my opinion, more so, than a training problem. Obviously more guys are training to throw hard and everything like that, which, brings its own risks and everything. I never got hurt because I threw 81 from second base, right? I was a middle infielder. I didn't throw hard enough to get hurt, but, I think, everybody is chasing velocity, but, But you have to chase velocity, right? That's how you get paid. That's how you get scholarships, a lot of times, right? You have to have an out pitch, right? You have to be able to strike guys out, right? That's where the Major League Baseball game has gone, and the college baseball game has followed closely behind. So you can't fault the kids for trying to chase velocity. Where I have seen the challenges is because you're trying to play 6 games, from Wednesday to Saturday with 6 guys, with 6 real pitchers on the roster.
So
I got to say quickly, Steve, just one. I just saw this. It just popped in my head like a couple hours ago before we came on here. There was this crazy statistic, and I apologize, I don't know the exact numbers, but basically it was talking about Jack Leiter, who obviously had all the success in the world at Vanderbilt, hasn't been able to put it together at the major league level yet. He's been up, has struggled a bit. And the statistic was showing that when he gets to 98, 99 miles per hour on his fastball, hitters in the majors and the minors are hitting somewhere in the 100s against him. And when he's hitting 97, the averages go up to about 400 or higher, which is incredible at both levels. So like that just drove the point home of like chasing velocity is just, there's no way to end it. I think there's a way to try to prevent injuries still, but you're not going to just suddenly change the way pitchers are pitching. And we're not going back to the era of the 90s with Greg Maddux and Glavine throwing 5 inches off the plate, because you don't get that strike call anymore.
That's right. Yeah, TrackMan has changed the game, as far as the strike zone, right? Like you could set it as long as you squared up the catcher, right? You see all those old videos of Greg Maddux. You hit him in the chest, it's a strike, right? It doesn't matter if they're set up on the white line. Like that doesn't happen anymore, right? Those umpires get the reports after every game, and it's how they make the conference tournament. It's how they make regionals. It's how they make it to Omaha as umpires. Is how high your percentage is on your strike zone. And so, they're being monitored every game. So they're calling a real strike zone now in college baseball. And I think that's a part of why offensive numbers have been up. You have seen a push back into more movement than just straight velo, right? Early, it was just velo, and now it's more about pitch arsenals and pitch design. And, you can't throw what's considered a flat fastball, right? With 16 inches of vertical break, you have to chase either ride or sink along with velo. And you see it a lot of times with off-speed pitches now too, right? The same thing on the slider, right? Sliders thrown at 79 for certain guys are not close to how they perform at 83, right? And so, you're not going to change the way that guys train. I know, there's a lot of people that scream at, right, that strikes and everything like that. But, the hitters training is what has really came along, right? Like our guys see 95 miles an hour every single day, and so you have to do something to combat it. And velo and movement combined, right, is the solution. And so there's a way to train it healthfully. And, a lot of it is, kind of knowing what arm actions are more vulnerable to having injuries and things like that. But, there's a way that you can train healthfully, and, ultimately it's how you train everything else, right? Guys that throw the ball hard a lot are going to throw the ball hard, right? And there's a way to do that, right? Just like sprinters need to sprint, right? Pitchers need to throw the ball hard, to be able to get the most out of their career. And so ultimately that's not going away, right? It's not going to change, right? It's just, having a pulse and having a feel on, how to make sure, before you get to a level where you have to pitch more than once a week, how to monitor that and make sure that you're doing the right things for the longevity of your career.
So we've been talking about making it to the major leagues, and it seems like there's a shortening of the gap for MLB prospects getting from the minors to the bigs quicker these days. The Paul Skeens most famous case of it, but it's happening more often than not, where you see a guy drafted and then pretty soon he's contributing to your team, which to me, we talked about this endlessly on here. For anyone that will listen, is that's good for baseball, because the NFL draft consumes fans. They're getting ready for it every year, but the reason why it's so popular is because it's helping their NFL team that next year. That's why they follow it as closely. And I think that actual relationship between college baseball and the MLB will eventually have that sort of, synced up nature that it could actually help the popularity of college baseball in turn. Do you think we owe all that credit to college baseball for this popularity and really the jump that we're seeing, the Paul Skeens of the world, that famous story of it? Do you think that college baseball is the reason that this is happening?
I think the training, that guys are doing at a younger age is why guys are more ready to compete at the highest level. earlier, right? I mean, when I was in high school, I don't think I touched a squat rack when I was in high school, right? Now everybody on Twitter, squats and benches more than I do. That's, 16 years old, right? And so they're more ready to go into the college game. Training at the college level with the use of pitching machines is completely different. Once again, when I played in college, we hit front toss in a half cage in the Midwest, and then it was go out there and try to compete against 87 miles an hour. Right now, you see high scores early on in February because guys have been hitting 95 miles an hour for a month and a half, and 84 mile an hour, 85 mile an hour sliders for a month and a half, and so they're ready. So when they get to professional baseball, they don't have to get used to the pace of play. They don't have to get used to seeing the speeds that you see at that level. You've done it every day for 4 years. You're in college, right? And the same thing on the pitching end. Guys are going to facilities and training and their strength training, and they have week-long programs for their recovery and so you see more velo in high school, you see more velo in college, and it's easier to identify what stuff is going to get people out at that level, right? And so a real sinker at 80 at 95 miles an hour is a real sinker at 95 miles an hour, and they know how that stuff plays in the big leagues, and so they're quicker to bring those guys up. They don't need a track record. Paul Skeens doesn't need a track record of getting guys out in Double-A because they know what his stuff does, right? Like they can there's values that are put to it metrically, and so they know what it's going to do and how it's going to perform. So they're quicker to bring guys up because they know what the stuff is. So I think it's the training and and the data that has helped guys move along to the big leagues quicker that are ready to go there, right? As opposed to waiting for them to have success at a certain level before they get bumped up to another level.
So on a more lighthearted note, I got to give a shout out to my dad real quickly. The first time, this is years ago at this point, but the first time I ever heard of Campbell University was actually, he was asking for his birthday for a Campbell University sweatshirt. Now, I went to Delaware, my sister went to Towson, my dad himself went to Wake Forest. So it happens, his middle name is Campbell, so that's why he wanted the sweatshirt. It's a pretty rare name. And then when I looked it up and I saw that the team name is the Fightin Camels, honestly, immediately I had to think like that has to be the best name, maybe not just in college sports, maybe in sports. Between that and then the Nobodies from Nowhere moniker, like I'm giving you guys the gold medal as far as that goes. Do you think there's a silver medal to somebody who has the second best team name in college sports? There's a lot out there.
Team name in college sports. That's a good question. I don't know. Obviously I'm a homer. I'm a believer in roll humps and the Fightin Camels and everything that is the Campbell brand. I wouldn't. I don't have a second choice. They're all tied behind the Camels in my opinion.
That's
so
fair. That's fair.
Absolutely love it. So we always end our interview segments with just talking about Mount Rushmores, and it's always going to be subjective to whoever the guest is. And we try to leave it open-ended so you can put your spin on this. And for you, we're going to ask Mount Rushmore of Campbell University Athletics. You can include players and coaches. Doesn't have to be just limited to baseball. If you had to exemplify, explain to an alien landing on Earth, what is Campbell University and who are the athletes that define it? Who would they be? Or coaches, like I said.
Yeah, so I would have to, first and foremost, I would have to put Greg Goff on there. He's the guy that hired Justin Haire as his assistant and, back-to-back, 40-plus win seasons, won 49 games, I believe, in 2013. And they got snubbed actually out of the regionals, for what would have been their first appearance, and then went in 2014 before he moved on. But the guy that, poured a lot into the program and the community to kind of get it going, and obviously, set the path for Justin Haire and myself to continue and try to build upon it. So first and foremost, right, him who, went on to Louisiana Tech and then Alabama and now at Purdue. I would have to say him number one. Number two would be Ryan Thompson. Has been in the World Series twice, but if you look up his numbers, right, he was a closer. But but pitched, if they had the lead in the 6th inning during that time, and when in Goff's era, he took the ball every single time, and led the country in ERA as a submariner in college, and was responsible for a lot of held victories, a lot of wins himself, a lot of saves himself, but his numbers were incredible, and maybe would be on there some of the best in college baseball of all time. So I would put him on there, number 2. You have to put Justin Haire on there for what he's did. Obviously, he's the reason that I'm here, and a guy that, we figured a lot of things out together, and, a guy that is one of my good friends, and, took him to 5 out of the last 6 regionals before moving on to another place. And, and then Zach Neto would be my 4th, right? From, for who he is, and what he continues to do for this program, and being one of the fastest guys, just like you talked about, to make it from college, straight through the minors and into the big leagues, and, being one of the best shortstops in the game right now. So I would have to go with those 4 guys. And that's a pretty quick 4 right there. So I would like to put more on there, but those 4 guys have to be on that list.
So, Coach, you gave us so much time tonight, and we so appreciate it. And you guys are kicking off that 3-game set against Georgia Southern that you mentioned before at home, looking to build on a win streak to inflate it to 3, which we're looking forward to. Fresh off that win against Duke, number 17 ranked in the country, 9-6. So impressive. So excited to watch as I follow the journey of the season. I'm so stoked for the success we're seeing so far, and for your first season. I'll give you the platform right here to hype up more of the stuff going on. Obviously, speak to everything you were just talking about before, but this is the floor right here for you to tell our listeners what they can expect from Campbell University.
Yeah. So, from a baseball standpoint, right, I know you guys have mentioned, buying the jerseys or sweatshirts, right? Like, that stuff is available at rollhumpsbaseball.com. Right. That's where a lot of that stuff, that people are always asking about, right? That's where you can find, that's where we sold the jerseys to the members right before, the ones that got auctioned off. So you can go there to kind of, a way to give back to our donors as far as kind of a more in-depth look at Campbell baseball. The guys that, a lot of our alumni follow from across the country, right? They're not still right there in Bowie's Creek and working their jobs and stuff like that. So we wanted to make sure that they were kept in the loop about a place that was so special to them. And so rollhumpsbaseball.com is kind of where we send people if they're looking for, the Nobodies stuff and things like that. And then, just, on top of that, right, like, we're just going to keep being us. We're going to keep recruiting at a high level and developing at a high level. And, we don't ask for a bunch of recognition. We love our fans, right? We love the people that want to be a part of it, and people that support us and everything like that. But, we're not looking for awards or trophies or anything like that. Like, we're just looking to be better every single day and continue to get in the trenches with our guys, and hope that, that when they leave us, they're ready to go on and tackle whatever is next, right? Whether it's a corporate job, whether it's, a master's degree, whether it is professional baseball, like, our job is just to make sure that those guys are prepared, right? And that's who we are, and that's who we want to continue to be. And, and like I said, we love the people that come out and support our guys for all the work that they've poured in, and support us from afar. And we appreciate what you guys do. And, I wouldn't have found this place, right, if it wasn't for the mention of Campbell baseball. So we appreciate that. And like I said, I mean, we want to help the people that help us. And I'm just so thankful that you guys allowed me to come on here and talk about our program and what Campbell baseball is.
Oh, for sure. And I have family that lives 45 minutes away from Jim Perry Stadium. So I'm
come on.
Going out there, check out a game. So, and we did that podcast. What it came from was we wanted to explore college baseball. We had Ben Upton over there that covers college baseball in depth. We wanted to explore it more. And I got to tell you, Chris, we've been watching a lot of college baseball throughout these past couple of weeks. I love it, man. And I've been watching every game that you guys put out there. Super excited for what happened with Duke. Devin and I were texting. It was really exciting, and has me hooked to the college baseball feel. And roll humps.
Roll humps. I appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for having me on.
All right, we'll be back in 1 second to wrap up the episode. All right, I want to thank Coach Marx for hopping on here and talking all things Campbell baseball. That was a guest we've been waiting to get. I know he's been a busy guy. We've been going back and forth on the X machine. Well worth the wait. Great conversation. Almost an hour of I mean, he makes you want to run through a wall and play some baseball, suit up in the black and orange. Nobodies from nowhere. Absolutely love it. Roll humps. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, man. How can you not buy into that if you're listening to that? It's Nobodies from nowhere. I love it. 4,000 people at the school. They're up against, they're think about how frustrating that must have to be when the NIL money is coming like crazy from these other schools and you're trying to hold on to your players and also recruit new players. And the mindset he has is just the perfect mindset you're going to have in that position. Like you cannot be in that position if you have anything short of Coach Marx's mindset that he was putting here tonight. So, yeah, I'm excited for what they're going to do. And the other thing I'll say is Zach Neto, man. Like I already liked that player a lot. Listening to Coach talk about him, he's gone way up my list of favorite players, and he'll be another guy I'm rooting for as well at the major league level.
No, for sure. And I think a lot of the conversation about the future of the players, the future of the program has me really excited about where they're going. And I mean, the proof is right there in the success. And he's only a few games into this first season here, but he seems to have the mentality down and a love for what they're bringing to the table. And I think that's the biggest thing that transcends through this podcast, through the audio waves. I feel like people can read the passion of he just lives, breathes, and everything about Campbell baseball. It's not just a job to him. It feels like it's a passion and a lifestyle.
Yeah, man. And I mentioned kind of how he's had a few different stops and different positions on different sides of the ball, coaching wise, and he's been successful, like really successful at all of them. I'll read you and I'll tell you what I was alluding to basically. So here's a few little things. So while he was the hitting coach for Purdue in 2024, he helps that lead Purdue to a historic offensive season. The team set team records in home runs, runs scored, runs per game, RBI, on base percentage, and hit by pitch. The Boilermakers had an 11-game win streak in Big Ten play, the longest win streak since 2018. So, like, right there, having that on your resume as the hitting coach, pretty incredible. As their pitching coach, he led them in the 2022 season to set team records for strikeouts and strikeouts per 9 innings, also recording a program record for strikeouts in a 4-game series in a 2021 series against Nebraska. So like there's a bunch of this stuff. If you look like at his bio here, it's not just that he's done a bunch of different things, but he's done all of them really, really well. Those two things I just read you are just one snippet of it. There's more there. So all the success in the world we wish to Coach Marx, and I think he needs our good luck, to be honest. It seems like he knows what he's doing.
Oh, 100%. And we appreciate you guys supporting the podcast here and listening to us. We promised you guys one episode this week. We gave you two. I'm here in Brooklyn in the shadow of Ebbets Field, what used to be Ebbets Field, recording a podcast for the love of the game. When I got in touch with Chris Marx today, and I was texting with Devin, I was like, I'm going to be traveling for work, but we need to make this happen because I know he's going to be hitting the road. We want to make sure we link this up and bring you guys the content because we definitely want to talk all things Fightin Camels. If you guys want to also support the show, you can follow us on Instagram and on X at Tablesetters Pod and use code TS10 on Dugout Mugs at checkout to save 10% on your order over there. Buy a gift for somebody. Get ready for the baseball season and buy one of those amazing mugs. Buy a bottle opener. Support Dugout Mugs and what they're doing over there.
Yeah, and we'll most likely be back early next week to have a kind of a special episode, a unique episode where Steve and I will be kind of, I don't want to say reviewing, maybe reflecting on our own fantasy league's draft. And again, it's a unique league, so we'll have to explain the settings to you for it to make complete sense. But I think that'd be interesting. I'm looking forward to recording it. Hopefully there are people out there that that's something they want to listen to. That'll be out probably Monday or Tuesday, I would guess. Probably Tuesday.
And just quickly want to give a shout out to CBS Sports and Scott White for allowing us to participate in the head-to-head mock draft points league. A lot of good feedback, a lot of pushback about my Ryan Jeffers pick that was accidentally done. So I got absolutely eviscerated on the podcast, but it was a silver lining, Devin, because they probably said my last name more than they would have said. So people out there now follow me at SGroundballTS on Twitter, and they know my name. Hopefully not as the guy who drafted Ryan Jeffers in the 13th round. Clearly not my intention. You knew that when you saw it. Like, why would Ryan Jeffers be picked? I'm using a laptop that I'm not used to. It has one of those grip pads, and it's one of those things. It's touchscreen, so when you grip on the mouse, it starts to create all the different dynamics. And Ryan Jeffers was in my queue. and
It's
pick up.
okay. It's okay to be a big Ryan Jeffers fan. You don't make
Dude,
excuses.
I looked up some jerseys. I'm like, I might as well just get a Ryan Jeffers jersey right now. The Twin Cities jersey is pretty nice, right? The City Connect. Let me just grab a Ryan Jeffers piece for the season to get started.
Yeah, dude, embrace it. You're a big Ryan Jeffers guy. The whole world knows it now.
But
So-
man, they hated on the Vientos pick too. I was thinking of you. Like, I don't know if you listened all the way through, but I picked Vientos, and that was the one pick. I was like, you know what? I'll take the heat for that because I believe Vientos is going to be good. They were saying that there's a million holes in his screen, which is, you look at the advanced statistics, like it feels like Vientos' success. He does it despite some of it, but there are players in the league that will continue to have success that they'll also have sex. Maybe I'm not sure, but they'll continue to have success throughout despite the analytics. So I'm exhausted. I'm really tired, but I appreciate you guys doing that. But your thoughts on the Vientos thing?
I don't know. Maybe we should just end the episode there. So Vientos, I know what they're saying. I've heard a lot of different fantasy guys kind of back and forth. You're either really high on him or you're kind of expecting a sophomore slump. He does have some holes when you look at the advanced stuff, like he kills fastballs. So the obvious solution for pitchers making an adjustment this year is throwing more breaking balls. He's similar to Pete Alonso in some ways, where there's times where he can just not lay off the outside breaking ball. And then the periods of time where he is just letting that pitch go and waiting on something better, he's a hell of a hitter. So he's just going to have to adjust. And you can tell the kid has a good mindset of knowing he needs to keep on progressing. And you're around guys like Francisco Lindor and Juan Soto, like these professional baseball, like just professionals. So, and Vientos spends a lot of time with Lindor. Lindor's really taken him out of his wings, under his wing. So, I wouldn't kill you for that pick. It's an upside pick. But I get the criticism. I can see both sides, I guess.
Yeah, and one thing I will say, I think Mets fans this time next year would have purchased a Vientos jersey. I believe he's going to become a fan favorite on a team. He's already loved by Met fans that are deep in there. But for some of the casual fans, batting near Lindor and batting near Soto, as we mentioned, it can't hurt for his success. So I can't imagine he's going to have a worse season than he had this year. But who knows? I'm just a
Swaggy V, man. That's Swaggy V. He's already beloved. But yeah, if he does it again, oh my God, he'll be more beloved for sure.
So we'll be back next week talking all things baseball. Again, recapping our fantasy draft, which is Sunday, our head-to-head live in person. So I'll see Devin. I'll finally be able to give him his trophy. He'll be able to give me my Dugout Mugs merch, all the good stuff. Devin defending his title. It starts here. And we'll be talking baseball all next week. And we'll talk to you after a while.
High fly ball into right field. She is gone. In a year that has been so improbable, the